Ah, yeah. There we go. Okay. Sorry about that. I'm not the only one using OBS to stream. So, all right. So yeah, I tweeted that stop using dubstep snares in drum and bass. It's 2021, and yeah, I realize that's kind of like a snobby thing to say, but um, there's a good reason why you should at least strive to make your own drums or strive to get better drums. I mean, you can use samples to get the same effect, but um, yeah, I'll show you a few techniques. Let's start by making fundamental. Before I do that, all right. And I'm also gonna put this in a group because I'm gonna do this in a instrument rack. I usually separate it out into different channels, but I want to make like a velocity sensitive snare, so it's not static. And yeah, it's a lot easier to do that with a instrument rack. And yeah, I could actually maybe I should make the whole kit from scratch. So I'll do the kick and the snare. So I guess I'll start with the kick. So let me just get a little sine wave going. And I'm gonna add a little envelope to the pitch. It's gonna be really fast. Yeah, that feels about right. So yeah, I'm looking for a really fast transient. Do a standard drum and bass pattern. And instead of trying to develop the whole kick by itself and then moving on to the snare, I'm just gonna do both gradually together. So I'll work on the snare a bit, work on the kick a bit. For this, same thing. Just want a fundamental, so a nice super short little click. And the key is getting it to be nice and to make it sound like a physical object being hit. Oops. So I want this to be super short as well. But a little bit of a pitch envelope helps. And also shifting it a little bit off phase so it begins a little bit more clicky. Not too much. Okay. Another thing I want to do is add some velocity sensitivity. So I'm going to have it control both the volume and I want it to control the length, I think. Okay. Now I'm going to make a pattern with some ghost notes and everything. So, say the 2 and 4 are the most accented ones. And maybe some ghost hits there. I'm going to use a transient shaper just to clip it off so it doesn't go above 0. I'm going to do the same for this. Actually, I'm going to make this velocity sensitive as well, so I'm going to add a little ghost hit. Maybe here. So right now, it'll just sound like this. Yeah, I want to control the volume. And I think I'll have it control the length as well. Alright. Now let's try to build up the snare a little bit. So we got a really short fundamental for the kick and the snare. That's really important for drum bass because you don't have that much time, much space to work with. Alright, let's start on the snare first. So I'm just gonna start simply with a little bit of a harmonic. Add some velocity sensitivity. I'll be doing that for each different layer. Yeah, I think the third harmonic works for this. Just trying to build up the fundamental at this point. I'm not even thinking about the snares, like the rattle or the tail of it. I'm just trying to get a nice impact on a nice weighty transient. And with each layer, I'm adding a little bit of attack because I don't want to mess with the fundamental and the other layer that we have first. I think I'll do the same thing here where yeah, that sounds about right. Now, for the kick, add a bit of noise, I think. So I'm going to use an oscillator and then use some noise to modulate it, like this. Let's make this super short. Again, adding some attack. And you'll hear right now it's super crude, but as you develop it and start to EQ it and process it and add reverb and stuff, it becomes a little bit more like an actual kick and more like an actual snare. So let's see. I want this to be, yeah, a little bit shorter. The effect I'm going for is when you hit a kick drum, you don't just hear the click of the kick and the sub, you hear the whole drum kit rattling. So I'm trying to get that kind of sound. Let's take a high pass filter. We need to add some velocity sensitivity to this. And moving the phase around and changing the pitch of this will change the relationship of the noise to the fundamental phase-wise. You want them to work together. So playing around with it till I find something that I like. You hear how there it sounds like it's kind of working together, and if I put it out of phase, like here, like there, it sounds like it has more attack on it than it actually does because it's out of phase with the fundamental. So yeah, the phase has a huge impact. It's all right. We'll be going back and forth a bunch and making each better as we go. All right, now the snare. We'll build up the harmonics a bit. using high pass filters to like separate the tail from the harmonics. I mean, from the fundamental. Now I'm going to add some velocity sensitivity to the attack and decay. I'm not going to go too crazy with the tail yet because, again, we want it to be short and snappy. So right now I'm just thinking about getting that transient right. And then as soon as I get the transient right, then I can start thinking about doing some creative stuff with the tails. Okay, back to the kick. Just gradually adding more stuff. I'm just going to use regular noise and make it super stereo. Attack. Get it short. Add some high pass so it doesn't clash with the fundamental. Because as you add more harmonics and stuff to one layer, or to the snare, then the kick will start to need more harmonics or more snap in the transient or whatever it is. So that's why it's good to like go back and forth, and I find that it helps making a kick and snare together because you feel more of like what will work rather than just kind of guessing what will work with whatever kick you're going to use in the future. So this is just a very basic, crude sound right now, but you'll hear as we process it more, it'll start to sound better. Okay, adding another layer to the snare. Just again, normal stereo noise. Okay. Now at this point, I usually start to play around with like some saturation on the whole group, just a bit, see how it responds. This partly just glues everything together in a nice way, and it also gives me a little bit of headroom to play around with EQing or whatever I want afterwards. Saturn specifically, it's really good for that. You could use just a regular saturator and then, put the drive up and then take the output down, but yeah. I like the sound of Saturn. Let's put it on high quality as well. Yeah, just in case there's any artifacts that are clashing with any of the harmonics. So we get as close as a replication to whatever's before the saturation as possible, which is super important for things like drums and anything with a transient linear phase as well. Sometimes it sounds better, sometimes it doesn't. Let's try adding some saturation to the snare. Yeah, I think just a bit. Yeah. It's still early days, but it's nice to see how it responds to saturation. I think we'll start adding some more layers. Actually, before I start adding more layers, I'm going to start EQing some of these. I shouldn't have deleted that. Whatever. Just add it back. It's not doing anything. Alright. First of all, let's see where our fundamental is. Let's just put a empty Pro Q on here so we can see what we're doing. Okay, so our fundamental right now is sitting a little bit above 200, which is pretty low for like a modern drum and bass snare. But I've been liking lower fundamentals recently. It's more classic sounding, but it works as long as it's nice and short and snappy. So, EQing everything. I want some separation between the bottom of our fundamental and the harmonics. And I'm going to try to see what it sounds like when I cut this. Yeah, I feel like it needed a bit of a cut around there. I feel like this might need a similar treatment. Okay. Let's work on the kick a bit. Let's add another noise layer. Actually, I'll use this. Yeah. Yeah. That's the kind of noise I want. more like a crack. Here, now it sounds like the pedal hitting the kick drum. And yeah, with every layer, the other instrument starts to sound a little bit weaker. So it's good to constantly add layers to see what needs improving, because when you start to do this, you tend to underlayer. You tend to make something that you think sounds good, but then you put it in a track and you think, fuck, I need to add a shit ton more layers to this. Which is why I tend to do this all in the project of a track. But yeah, this is usually where I start with a drum and bass track, so it helps. Velocity sensitivity. I'm going to be saying that a lot. Okay. Now we have this. Okay, let's play around with different oscillators. Add some. Okay. Yeah, now I'm just trying to find a place where this fits with the other layers. And what I'm looking for is where it sounds the tightest in the transient. I think around there is the best. Okay, let's EQ it a bit. And the cool thing about doing it in a single instrument rack is you can just do this. And it just pitches everything else up. So if you think, oh, my snare's too low, or my kick's too low, I like that better for the kick, actually. Not sure about the snare. Yeah, that's a little bit better. There's a little bit too much. Yeah, there's a little bit too much high end, around like 10 to 20K. I'm almost happy with my kick. I think the only thing I want to do now is maybe add a bit of reverb. Yeah. Just a bit. I think that makes me want to start adding reverb to these. So. So yeah, just trying to make it sound a little bit more roomy. Okay. I think the snare needs more overtones. I just typed in snare. Phase plant. Right. For that, I'm going to use 2 sine waves, FM modulated together. Let's make it. I'm gonna make it so there's a drop off to the FM modulation. Yeah, so it sounds. I'll solo this layer so you can hear this. Right. I think I'm going to try to add a corpus to this. Can produce some interesting results. I'm gonna compress this as well. Yeah. Better. All right. It's definitely getting there. Yeah, that's why I put the transient shaper there to clip it, because I knew that I would probably end up turning it up quite a bit. And I'm even making it shorter. That's how short a drum and bass snare usually needs to be. Yeah, that feels better. Notice as soon as I turned up the transient, it just immediately starts slapping. Yeah. Do the same here. Yeah, that feels way better. When you turn up the fundamental, you can start turning up other things. Yeah, now let's play around with the pitch of it. Yeah, sometimes high passing it can help, sometimes it makes it worse, depending. And I'm doing this to the whole snare group right now. Now for the kick, some EQing. Yeah, I actually like that better as well. Okay. It's a little bit better. Are there any questions so far? There are probably a load of questions because I've been looking at the fucking chat. That might help. Do you generally think that in the context of a particular track when designing drums like this, you just bounce the drum? Well, for this kind of thing, I would usually start here and then add bass layers and then try and turn this into a loop and keep it like it is here. I used to bounce out drums like this a lot more often. Nowadays, I'll start a whole track like this. Hold on. It's my foot. My ducker's been off this whole time. Someone's been fucking with my filters. The threshold down a bit on this limiter. Alright. Yeah, now I would tend to start making some hi-hats and yeah, so let's do that. I'm not gonna go too crazy with the hi-hats. It's just to demonstrate. I find making a hi-hat is kind of easy when you just take noise and then frequency shift it. To me, that sounds like a 909. I mean, yeah, that sounds like a 909 to me. So if you want an unnatural sounding, electronic sounding hi-hat, that's how you do it. And for the sake of, actually, let's add some velocity sensitivity to this. Okay. Let's add an, actually, That's better. Okay. And adding hi-hats will also give you a clue of it is will also tell you if your drums are sounding good. It's a bit too loud right now. I'm going to put this in a group and put these in a group, and then I'm going to sidechain the hi-hats a little bit from the get-go. Turn off auto gain. There. And usually what I'd do is add some convolution to, let's use the hybrid reverb just to show you that you can do it in Live 11 with stock plugins. What am I doing? Let's load up a impulse that I made earlier. Impulse is short. It doesn't really matter. Yeah, that sounds hi-hatty. Yeah, these are just short impulses I made with a little impulse click and a bunch of different reverbs and other tail generators, so to speak. And I tend to use M transformer without much on it. Now what this does is it blurs the transients of the hi-hats a bit, and it blurs them sort of backwards, so it compensates for the delay that is added, and then it sort of blurs the transients. You'll hear. That's with, and without. Right. Yeah, how long have I been streaming? How long did it take me to make this? When did I start streaming? Oh, yeah, only about an hour. Okay, that's good. So, I hope I've demonstrated that it's actually worthwhile to make your own drums because it will save you a ton of time mixing down the road. Like, I've only spent an hour making these drums, whereas if I had thrown in some random dubstep sample, pitched it up, and tried to get it to work with the mix, down the line I'm going to have a lot of trouble getting that snare to work. Whereas now I've already kind of sorted most of the hard work out for myself later. So this actually is a real big time saver rather than something that seems like a long ass hassle to do, you know. Every time you want to make a tune, you just want to get your musical ideas out, but it's good to have kits like this lying around just you know, for when you want to make a good drum and bass tune. And then as you start adding bass sounds and other percussion layers, you'll hear how you can improve your kick and your snare, and by doing it in a project, you can easily access every single element of that snare instead of having to deal with dealing with samples, basically. Layering, I mean, you can get something similar with layering samples. It's great. In fact, I do it all the time, but this gives me a little bit more control. Are there any other questions? I can bring up an oscilloscope. How about that? Whoops. Okay, so this gives us a good view of the kick and the snare. This being the kick, and this being the snare. Yeah, so if we analyze this, you can see like the start of the transient of the snare is very, 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 very short. And the tail is also pretty short. I mean, we're talking about, what is that? 0.2 of a millisecond. So, yeah. The kick is weighty, but again, really short and snappy. Yeah, that even shorter sounds better to me. And now I can go in and play with individual layers and adjust things. And the way I've mixed it is it doesn't matter too much on the overall sound if you change one or two things a little bit. So yeah. Yeah, for metering I use Insight, which I put in a Max for Live patch so it stays on top. Can't even move it right now. Yeah, I can't move it from that screen. So yeah. I mean, I think this is the biggest struggle for most people with drum and bass is getting good drums. And I hope this stream showed you that it's worthwhile spending an hour making some drums. Obviously, it's going to start, when you start off, it takes longer because, you know, you don't really know what you're doing yet. But the more you practice this and the more you apply these, like, it's more about like applying these mentalities to making drums, like starting with the fundamental and gradually building up the sound. It takes time to learn, but yeah, it's definitely worthwhile to practice and get better at it because it'll save you a lot of time trying to find the right snare. And yeah, usually you won't be 100% happy with it and you're stuck with this sample that you can't really change that much except for EQing and processing, whereas this you have really detailed control over every aspect of your drum sound. So yeah, yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time.